if F and G both are odd transposition, then M and T are both odd, and that implies M plus T is also even, and so that part also is there. If F is odd and G is even, then their composition is also odd. And finally, if F is even, then F inverse is even, or if F is odd, then F inverse is also odd. From this we derive very interesting result. Suppose F and G both are odd even permutations, then their composition also is an even permutation. And so if I take AN as the set of even permutations, then what happens here is that F and G both belong to AN implies F composition G also belongs to AN. That means AN is closed under binary operation. Since our group Sn is finite, so AN is also finite, and it is closed under composition, binary operation composition, and that gives you that AN is a subgroup of Sn. We can say one thing more. And what we can say is that A is not only a subgroup, it is a normal subgroup. And the proof is, suppose F belongs to AN and G is any element belonging to Sn. Then take G composition F composition G inverse. If G belongs to AN, then G inverse also belongs to AN, and AN being a subgroup, it belongs to AN. If G is an odd transposition, then G composition F, because F is even, G composition F becomes an odd transposition. G inverse is also odd transposition, and so this becomes an even permutation. And that implies it also belongs to AN, and so AN becomes a normal subgroup of Sn. Now, the final part, what we can say about the number of elements of the subgroup AN. And for this, what we do is, we define another set, Bn, the set of all odd permutations in Sn, and we take n greater than or equal to 2. N equal to 1, alright, is not interesting, so we take n greater than or equal to 1. So we have two subsets An and Bn of Sn, and we can see very easily that Sn can be expressed as a union of An union Bn, and An intersection Bn is phi. Now we define one mapping phi from Bn to An. And how I define? I define phi f is equal to F composition transposition 1, 2. F is a even odd transposition, so F composition 1, 2 is a even transposition, and so it belongs to An. What we can say about this mapping phi, it is 1, 1 and on 2, and that follows very easily from the group theoretical part. Oneness is this, that suppose phi f is equal to phi g, then F composition 1, 2 equal to G composition 1, 2. Since we are in a group, we can cancel this, and what we get is F equal to G. So we can prove that it is 1, 1 and on 2. Now both the sets are finite. There exists a mapping which is 1, 1 and on 2, and that implies the number of elements in Bn is the same as the number of elements in An. Now Sn is equal to An union Bn, and so number of elements in Sn is equal to number of elements in An plus number of elements in Bn, and that implies 2 times number of elements in An equal to factorial n, and that gives you that order of the group An is equal to factorial n by 2. And this group AN is called alternating subgroup of Sn. I conclude my talk with two special remarks. First remark is this, that each even permutation F can be expressed as a product of 3 cycles. Every even permutation can be expressed as a product of 3 cycles. And second and very important remark is this, that for n greater than or equal to 5, the group Sn is not solvable. And this result plays a very important role in the study of field theory and especially in the study of Galois theory. To read further in this direction, alright, one can refer the book I. Herstein, Topics in Algebra. Thank you. Now, second speaker will come and she will give her talk.
Good afternoon, friends. The last time we met, we talked about how to construct group tables for groups of small order, especially groups of order 4 and 5. At that time, if you remember, we discussed how there are only 2 prototypes of groups of order 4. Some groups of order 4 look like Z4, some groups of order 4 look like the Klein 4 group V. For example, if you consider the rotations of the group of symmetries of a rectangle, it looks like V, and if you look at the 4th roots of unity under multiplication, they look like Z4. This concept, mathematically speaking, is known as isomorphism. Why do we need to study isomorphisms? Nobody can explain that better than this quotation. It says, mathematicians do not study objects but relations among them. They are indifferent to the replacement of objects by others as long as relations do not change. Matter is not important, only form interests them. Henri Poincaré said this, isomorphism between groups helps us to determine if 2 groups defined in different terms are structurally the same. The notion was introduced by Galois. The term isomorphism itself comes from the 2 Greek words meaning isos and morphism meaning form. What is an isomorphism? If G1 and G2 are 2 groups, an isomorphism is a bijective mapping, that is 1-1 onto mapping, which preserves the multiplication in the groups. That is phi of AB equal to phi A into phi B for all A, B belonging to G1. Here, left hand side AB, the multiplication is what is in G1, and phi A into phi B, it is the multiplication in G2. In this case, we say that G1 is isomorphic to G2. The identity map is obviously 1-1 and onto, and it preserves multiplication. So, identity map on a group is always an isomorphism. Since the mapping is isomorphism is 1-1 and onto, its inverse also exists, we can show that it is also an isomorphism. Composition of 2 isomorphisms is also an isomorphism. So, isomorphism is an equivalence relation. So, if we find that some 2 different groups are isomorphic to one group, we can say they themselves among themselves are isomorphic. Here is an interesting example. Look at this example. Un is the set of all positive integers less than n and relatively prime to n. Then Un, we know that it forms a group under multiplication modulo n. Now look, Un is isomorphic to Z4. And U12, if you construct, what will be the elements of U12? The elements will be 1, 5, 7 and 11. Each of these elements are their own inverses, so U12 looks like the Klein 4 group. Another interesting example, if G is the group of real numbers under addition and G dash the set of positive real numbers under multiplication, the mapping phi going from G to G dash given by phi x equal to 2 raised to x is an isomorphism. Isomorphism, as I said earlier, preserves the group structure of G. Phi, if it's an isomorphism, it takes the identity element to itself. Phi of A raised to n is phi of A the whole raised to n. This fact plays a very vital role when we are discussing cyclic groups, because if you know phi of A, you know what is phi of A raised to n. So all you need to do is you need to know the value of phi on the generator of a cyclic group. For elements A and B in G, AB equal to BA if and only if phi A phi B equal to phi B phi A. That is, G dash is commutative if and only if G is commutative. Order of A is the same as order of phi A for all elements belonging to G. G dash is cyclic if and only if G is cyclic. If K is a subgroup of G, phi of G is also a subgroup of G dash. So you see, under isomorphism, all group theoretic properties of G are retained. If G is an infinite cyclic group generated by A, we can define an isomorphism from Z onto G by simply setting phi of n equal to A to the power of n. This is an isomorphism, so any infinite cyclic group is isomorphic to Z. This means that because isomorphism is an equivalence relation, any two infinite cyclic groups are isomorphic to each other. Similarly, if G and G dash are two cyclic groups of the same order, by defining phi of A dash equal to phi of A raised to I equal to B raised to I defines an isomorphism of G onto G dash. So any two finite cyclic groups of the same order are isomorphic. There are not only isomorphism from one group to another, there are also isomorphisms from one group to itself. They are known as automorphisms. The easiest automorphism you can think of is the identity mapping. The question is, are there other automorphisms? Look at this one. We fix any element B belonging to G, define phi x equal to Bx B inverse. It's very easy to check that phi preserves multiplication. It is 1, 1 and on 2. So it is very naturally defined isomorphism called conjugation by B or an inner automorphism. We can show that the set of all automorphisms or isomorphisms on G, they form a group. Automorphisms on G, they form a group. This is an interesting problem. Let us find all the automorphisms on Z10. As I said earlier, if phi is an automorphism, it is determined by its values on a generator. So let us look at the generator 1. We know its order is 10. So phi has to map 1 into an element of order 10. So phi of 1 has to be a generator of the group on the right hand side. Now what are the generators on the right hand side? They are 1, 3, 7 and 9. These are the 4 possible generators. So the only automorphisms are ones which map 1 into 1, 1 into 3, 1 into 7 and 1 into 9. So the group of inner automorphisms of G consists exactly of 4 elements. A homomorphism is a generalization of an isomorphism. This concept was introduced by Camille Jordan in 1870. Homo means like and morph, as you know, is form. A homomorphism is not 1, 1 and on 2 necessarily. It just maintains the operation in the two groups. Let phi taking from G to G dash be a group homomorphism. Then we associate two important subgroups with phi. One of that is the image of G under phi, which is a subgroup of G dash. The more important one is called the kernel of phi and is defined as the set of all x which are mapped onto E dash. We can show that kernel of phi is a normal subgroup of G and phi is 1, 1 if and only if kernel of phi consists of the singleton element. A very natural homomorphism arises from the set Z of integers into the set Zn of the residue class modulo n. By defining phi of n equal to class of n, this is a homomorphism whose kernel is nz, the group 0 plus minus n plus minus 2n etc. of all multiples of n. In the second year of BSc, you have studied the determinant function. It is a function from the set of all. The determinant function goes from n copies of a vector space V into R. Look at the determinant function. restricted to the domain of all invertible n cross n matrices into the multiplicative group of non-zero real numbers. It is a homomorphism whose kernel is the subgroup of matrices with determinant 1. These are matrices rotation which geometrically represent rotation. The kernel is called the special linear group. In the earlier part of the lecture, you studied the permutation group. With regard to the permutation group, we can define a very interesting homomorphism. For each sigma belonging to Sn, define signum sigma, the signum function, by signum sigma equal to 1 if sigma is an even permutation and minus 1 if sigma is an odd permutation. Then the signum function is a homomorphism from Sn to the multiplicative group 1 minus 1. Its kernel consists of all permutations with signum 1, namely the even permutations. That is, its kernel is the alternating group on n letters. Like isomorphisms, homomorphism also takes e to e dash, phi of A inverse equal to phi of A inverse. For any integer n and any a, we have phi of A raised to n equal to phi A the whole raised to n. But unlike in isomorphism, all we can say is order of phi A divides order of A. The most interesting result in this connection is the fundamental theorem of group homomorphism, which says that if phi is a homomorphism of G onto G dash with kernel K, then the quotient group G by K is isomorphic to G dash. Homomorphisms often help us to study the properties of a group by looking at a less complicated group. For example, if you read the interesting book by Gallian, he likens an isomorphism to seeing a person directly, looking at a person. Whereas a homomorphism is like a picture and that it gives you certain facets of the person. So, if you would like to read, the book of Gallian is very good. Abstract Algebra by Gallian is a very good reference. Michael Artin's book on algebra, that is also very nice. And